Last Christmas Eve. I stood in my in-laws' living room surrounded by the smell of fresh-baked cookies and the laughter of children playing near a 7-foot-tall Christmas tree. 23 of my wife's relatives had gathered for our annual holiday dinner, and I felt grateful for 8 years of marriage to Meredith. I had no idea that in 15 minutes she would slap me across the face and accuse me of giving her a sexually transmitted disease in front of every single person I called family. They all believed her. Not one person asked for my side. Before we dive into this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you enjoy stories about truth, justice, and standing up for yourself, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Stick with me until the very end, because what I discovered about my wife changed everything, and how I made every single one of them pay for their judgment is something you will not want to miss. My name is Cassius, and at 34 years old, I thought I had built a pretty solid life for myself. I worked as a software engineer at a tech company in Austin, Texas. The job demanded long hours, and I often found myself staying late at the office debugging code or finishing projects before deadlines. But I never complained because I believed I was building a future for my family. I grew up in a middle-class household where my parents taught me the value of hard work and loyalty. My father worked at a factory for 35 years, and my mother was a school teacher. They showed me what commitment looked like. When I met Meredith at a mutual friend's birthday party 9 years ago, I thought I had found someone who shared those same values. Meredith was 32, beautiful, and worked in human resources at a real estate company. She had this way of making everyone feel special when she talked to them. We dated for 3 years before I proposed, and she said yes with tears streaming down her face. I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. For the first 6 years of our marriage, things seemed perfect. We bought a house together, talked about having children someday, and spent weekends exploring new restaurants or hiking trails around Austin. Meredith was attentive, caring, and always remembered the little things that mattered to me. But her family was a different story. Her father, Harold, was 62 years old, a retired military man with rigid opinions about everything. From the moment I met him, I could tell he did not think I was good enough for his daughter. He made comments about my job, calling it something that anyone could do from their bedroom. He questioned why I did not play sports or hunt like real men did. I always smiled and nodded because I loved Meredith and wanted to keep the peace. Her mother, Diane, was 58 and completely devoted to her daughter. Whatever Meredith said was gospel truth in Diane's eyes. She treated me politely, but always with a certain distance, like I was a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Then there was Derek, Meredith's 28-year-old brother. He never missed an opportunity to make snide remarks about my career or my income. The fact that I earned more than him seemed to fuel his resentment rather than earn his respect. Despite all of this, I kept trying. I showed up to every family gathering with a smile. I helped Harold with yard work when he asked. I complimented Diane's cooking even when it was oversalted. I bit my tongue when Derek made his jokes at my expense. I did all of this because I believed that family was important, and I hoped that eventually they would accept me as one of their own. Looking back now, I realize they never did. About 6 months before that fateful Christmas, I started noticing changes in Meredith. Small things at first. She started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets, tilting the screen away whenever I walked by. She changed her password and claimed it was because of a security update at work. She began going to the gym almost every evening, sometimes not coming home until 9 or 10 at night. But her body never changed. She looked exactly the same as she always had, which struck me as odd for someone supposedly working out 4 or 5 times a week. There were phone calls she had to take outside, stepping onto the porch even in cold weather. When I asked who was calling, she always said it was work stuff, nothing interesting. I noticed she bought new lingerie during a shopping trip, but I rarely saw her wear it at home. Our intimate life had slowed down considerably. She always had an excuse. She was tired. She had a headache. She was stressed about a project. I convinced myself that I was being paranoid. Work had been demanding for both of us. Maybe she really was just exhausted. Maybe I needed to be a better husband and give her more attention instead of suspecting the worst. 3 weeks before Christmas, I saw something that planted the first real seed of doubt in my mind. Meredith had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. A message notification popped up on the screen from someone named Marcus. The preview showed just a few words. "See you tomorrow, cannot wait." When she came out of the shower, I asked her casually who Marcus was. She did not even flinch. "He was a coworker," she said. "They were collaborating on a big project together and he was just confirming a meeting." Her explanation was so smooth, so confident that I believed her. I wanted to believe her. On Christmas Eve, we drove to her parents' house in the suburbs of Houston. The 3-hour drive was mostly silent. Meredith seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone when she thought I was not looking. I assumed she was nervous about the holiday gathering. She always wanted everything to be perfect for her family. When we arrived, the house looked like something from a holiday movie. Harold and Diane had decorated every inch of the property with lights and wreaths. A massive Christmas tree dominated the living room, surrounded by piles of wrapped presents. The smell of roasted turkey and freshly baked pies filled the air. 23 family members had gathered for the celebration. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and their children filled every room with noise and laughter. I wore the red sweater Meredith had given me the previous Christmas, hoping to show her how much I valued her gifts. In my pocket, I carried a small velvet box containing a diamond necklace. It was modest by most standards, but it had taken me 3 months to save for it. I planned to give it to her in front of everyone, a public declaration of my love and commitment. Throughout the evening, I noticed Meredith drinking more wine than usual. She seemed tense, avoiding eye contact with me and checking her phone repeatedly. I tried to engage her in conversation, but she gave me short answers and quickly found excuses to walk away. I should have recognized the warning signs, but I was too busy trying to make a good impression on her family, too focused on the surprise I had planned to see what was coming. Around 8 o'clock, after dinner had been cleared and everyone had gathered in the living room near the fireplace, I decided it was time. The children were playing with toys near the Christmas tree. Adults were sipping drinks and sharing stories about years past. It felt like the perfect moment. I stood up from my chair and reached into my pocket for the velvet box. I wanted to call everyone's attention to make this moment special for Meredith, but before I could say a word, Meredith stood up abruptly. Her face was flushed from the wine, and her eyes held an expression I had never seen before. It was not sadness or fear. It was something harder, almost calculated. She pointed her finger directly at my chest and spoke in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "You gave me chlamydia." The words hung in the air like poison. I felt my stomach drop. My mind could not process what she had just said. She continued, her voice rising with each word. "I went to the doctor last week and I tested positive. You have been sleeping around and you infected me. How could you do this to me?" Before I could respond, before I could even form a coherent thought, her hand connected with my face. The slap was so hard that I stumbled backward. My cheek burned like it had been touched by fire. My ears rang from the impact. The velvet box fell from my hand and clattered to the floor. The room went completely silent for about 3 seconds. Then chaos erupted. Harold was the first to react. He jumped to his feet with a speed that surprised me for a man his age. His face turned red with fury as he marched toward me. "I always knew you were no good," he shouted, pointing his finger inches from my nose. "I told Meredith she was making a mistake marrying you. Get out of my house right now." Diane rushed to Meredith's side, wrapping her arms around her daughter as if I were some kind of monster who might attack at any moment. She looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. Derek stood near the doorway, a smug grin spreading across his face. "I told everyone he was a loser," he announced to the room. "Probably caught it from some cheap girl he met online." I tried to speak. I tried to defend myself. The words came out broken and desperate. "I have never cheated on you, Meredith. I do not know what you are talking about. I have been faithful to you for 8 years. Please just let me explain." But nobody was listening. The aunts and uncles whispered to each other, shaking their heads in disgust. The cousins pulled their children away from me as if I carried some contagious disease. Every face in that room looked at me like I was the villain in their family story. Meredith continued to cry, burying her face in her mother's shoulder. Her performance was flawless. She had become the victim, and I had become the villain, all in the span of 30 seconds. Harold grabbed my arm and started pushing me toward the front door. I looked back at the room full of people who had smiled and shaken my hand just hours earlier. Not a single person came to my defense. Not one voice suggested that maybe they should hear my side of the story. In that moment, I caught Meredith's eye. She lifted her head from her mother's shoulder just long enough for me to see her expression. And what I saw made my blood run cold. There was no pain in her eyes, no devastation. Instead, I saw something that looked almost like satisfaction. The front door slammed behind me. I stood on the porch in just my sweater, having left my coat inside. The temperature had dropped to around 40 degrees, and the cold bit into my skin immediately. I sat in my car for over 2 hours trying to understand what had just happened. I called Meredith's phone at least 20 times. She never answered. I sent text messages begging her to talk to me to give me a chance to prove my innocence. No response. Finally, I called my best friend Jerome. We had known each other since college, and he was the one person I knew would listen without judgment. When I told him what happened, his first words were simple but powerful. "Come to my house right now," he said. "We will figure this out together." Jerome and his wife Sandra welcomed me into their home that night. I sat at their kitchen table, still shaking from the cold and the shock, and told them everything. When I finished, Sandra reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. "You need to get tested yourself," she said. "If you come back clean, then she is the one lying." That night, as I lay awake on their guest room bed, I thought about the message I had seen on Meredith's phone 3 weeks earlier. "Marcus, see you tomorrow, cannot wait." For the first time, I allowed myself to consider a possibility that I had been too afraid to face. What if Meredith was the one who had been unfaithful? The day after Christmas, I drove to a medical clinic and requested a full panel of tests for sexually transmitted diseases. The nurse who drew my blood asked if I was experiencing any symptoms. I told her no, that this was just a precaution. She did not need to know the real reason. The results would take 48 hours. Those were the longest 48 hours of my life. While I waited, I began doing something I should have done months earlier. I started investigating. I opened my laptop and searched for Meredith's company on LinkedIn. I scrolled through the employee list until I found him. Marcus Whitfield, 38 years old, director of sales. His profile photo showed a handsome man with a confident smile. His relationship status indicated he was divorced. I called Jerome and asked if he knew anyone who worked in the Houston real estate industry. As luck would have it, Jerome's cousin worked for a competing firm. A few phone calls later, I had more information than I had expected. Marcus Whitfield had a reputation in the industry. He was known as a charmer, who had allegedly been involved with several female co-workers over the years. His divorce 2 years ago had been messy with rumors of infidelity on his part. More importantly, Jerome's cousin connected me with someone who worked directly with Meredith. This person agreed to speak with me anonymously, afraid of workplace retaliation if their name got out. What they told me confirmed my worst fears. Marcus and Meredith had been spending an unusual amount of time together for months. They went to lunch together almost every day. They had traveled together on 2 business trips to Dallas, staying at the same hotel. And 3 months ago, a maintenance worker had seen them kissing in the company parking garage after hours. When my test results came back 2 days later, I was not surprised by what they showed. Negative across the board. I was completely clean. I had no sexually transmitted diseases whatsoever. I held that piece of paper in my hands and felt a strange mixture of vindication and devastation. My wife had lied to an entire room full of people. She had publicly humiliated me, destroyed my reputation with her family, and accused me of something I had never done. And now I had proof that she was the unfaithful one, not me. But I needed more than hearsay and circumstantial evidence. If I was going to confront this, I needed documentation that could not be denied. I hired a private investigator named Raymond. He was a 50-year-old former police detective who specialized in infidelity cases. His fees were not cheap, But I was willing to pay whatever it cost to uncover the truth. Raymond went to work immediately. Within 1 week, he provided me with evidence that exceeded my expectations. He had photographs of Meredith and Marcus entering a hotel together on December 28th, 3 days after she had publicly accused me of giving her a disease. The timestamps showed them checking in at 7 in the evening and not leaving until the following morning. He had video footage from a parking lot camera showing them kissing passionately in Marcus's car. The date on the video was from 2 weeks before Christmas. He had a detailed log of their meetings over the past 3 months, documenting at least 3 to 4 encounters per week at various locations around the city. And most importantly, Raymond had discovered something that changed everything. Through his contacts in the medical community, he learned that Marcus had been diagnosed with chlamydia before Meredith. The timeline was clear. Marcus had infected Meredith, not me. She knew exactly where her infection had come from, and she had deliberately blamed me to cover up her affair. Her public accusation on Christmas Eve was not a moment of betrayed anguish. It was a calculated move. She had planned to destroy my reputation with her family, paint me as the unfaithful husband, and create grounds for a divorce that would be entirely in her favor. I spent 2 days studying every piece of evidence Raymond had gathered. Then I contacted a divorce attorney named Patricia, who specialized in cases involving infidelity. She reviewed the materials and confirmed what I had suspected. "You have an extremely strong case," Patricia said. "She publicly defamed you in front of dozens of witnesses. She accused you of something you did not do while actively engaging in the behavior herself. We can pursue divorce on grounds of adultery, and we have grounds for a defamation claim as well." I asked Patricia to prepare the divorce paperwork, but I told her I did not want to file it immediately. I had a different plan in mind. Meredith's family had a tradition of gathering again on New Year's Eve. The same people who had witnessed my humiliation on Christmas would be together again in just a few days. They had judged me without evidence. They had thrown me out into the cold without asking a single question. Now they would see the truth with their own eyes. Jerome agreed to accompany me as a witness. Sandra insisted on coming as well. On the evening of December 31st, the 3 of us drove to Harold and Diane's house. When I walked through the front door, the reaction was immediate. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Wine glasses froze halfway to mouths. Every eye in the room turned toward me with expressions ranging from shock to anger. Harold was the first to speak. "What the hell are you doing here? I thought I made it clear you were not welcome in this house." I remained calm. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. "I am here to clear my name. You all judged me without evidence 1 week ago. You called me a cheater. You threw me out of your home on Christmas. Not one of you bothered to ask if I was innocent. Well, I have evidence now, and you are all going to see it." I walked to the television mounted on the wall and inserted a USB drive I had prepared. The screen flickered to life. First, I showed them my medical test results. Clean. Negative for every sexually transmitted disease. The document was dated December 26th, the day after Christmas. If I had given Meredith this infection, I said I would have tested positive. I did not. Because I was never unfaithful. Not once in 8 years. The room was silent. Meredith stood near the back, her face growing pale. Next, I played the video footage. The image showed Meredith and Marcus in his car, their bodies pressed together, their mouths locked in a kiss that left no room for innocent interpretation. "This was recorded 2 weeks before Christmas," I explained. "Before your daughter publicly accused me of destroying our marriage." I showed them the photographs from the hotel. I read aloud the dates and times from Raymond's surveillance log. I explained that Marcus had been diagnosed with the infection before Meredith, making him the source, not me. "Your daughter knew exactly who gave her this disease," I said, looking directly at Harold and Diane. "She knew it was her co-worker, her lover, the man she had been seeing behind my back for months. But instead of admitting her affair, she decided to blame me. She humiliated me in front of all of you. She destroyed my reputation. She used your loyalty to her as a weapon against an innocent man." Meredith had started crying, but her tears no longer moved me. She tried to speak, to offer some explanation, but the words would not come. What could she possibly say? The evidence was undeniable. I turned to face the entire room. Every aunt and uncle who had whispered about me. Every cousin who had looked at me with disgust. Derek who had laughed at my expense. None of you asked me a single question, I said. None of you considered for even one moment that I might be telling the truth. You chose to believe her because she was blood, and I was just the outsider you never really accepted anyway. I walked toward Meredith and held out an envelope. These are divorce papers. My lawyer will be in contact with you about the details. I hope Marcus was worth it. I did not wait for a response. I did not need their apologies or their excuses. I had said what I came to say, and I had proven what I came to prove. Jerome, Sandra, and I walked out of that house together. As the door closed behind us, I heard voices erupt inside. Arguments, accusations, the sound of Meredith's sobs rising above the chaos. But I did not look back. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Patricia negotiated aggressively on my behalf. Because I had been the primary contributor to our mortgage payments and could prove Meredith's infidelity, I was able to keep the house. Additionally, Meredith was required to pay a settlement for the public defamation she had committed on Christmas Eve. The fallout for her extended beyond our marriage. When word of the affair spread through her company, both she and Marcus faced consequences. Their relationship violated workplace policies about romantic involvement between employees in different departments. Marcus was terminated. Meredith resigned before she could be fired, hoping to preserve some dignity on her professional record. Their romance did not survive the exposure. Without the thrill of secrecy, without the stability of her marriage to fall back on, the relationship crumbled within weeks. Meredith moved back in with her parents, the same parents who had so eagerly thrown me out of their home. Harold and Diane attempted to contact me several times in the months that followed. They left voicemails apologizing for how they had treated me, asking if we could meet to discuss what happened. I deleted every message without responding. Derek sent me a text that read simply, "I was wrong about you." I blocked his number. Their apologies meant nothing to me. When I had needed someone to give me the benefit of the doubt, they had chosen to condemn me instead. Forgiveness requires more than words. It requires the kind of trust that they had proven themselves incapable of offering. For a while after the divorce was final, I struggled with the aftermath. 8 years of my life had been built on a foundation that turned out to be rotten. I spent many nights lying awake replaying conversations with Meredith, searching for signs I might have missed. I questioned my own judgment, wondered if there was something I could have done differently. Jerome and Sandra refused to let me spiral. They invited me to dinner every weekend without fail. They listened when I needed to talk, and distracted me with movies and games when I needed to forget. They reminded me that I was not alone, that real family is not about blood, but about who stands beside you when everything falls apart. I started seeing a therapist, a patient woman named Dr. Warren, who helped me process the betrayal without letting it define me. She taught me that healing is not about forgetting what happened. It is about refusing to let the past control your future. I threw myself into my work and earned a promotion 6 months after the divorce. I started running every morning before sunrise, pushing my body until the physical exhaustion quieted the noise in my head. I joined a volunteer group at a community center helping organize events for underprivileged families. It felt good to focus on giving rather than on what had been taken from me. 1 year after that terrible Christmas, I found myself in a very different place. The house that Meredith and I had shared was now truly mine, redecorated with new furniture and new memories. The anger that had once burned so brightly in my chest had faded to something manageable, a scar rather than an open wound. I had also met someone new. Her name was Elise, and I encountered her at the community center where I volunteered. She was 31, kind-hearted, and had a laugh that made the room feel lighter. We took things slowly, neither of us in a rush to define what we were building. But there was something genuine between us, something that felt different from what I had experienced before. Christmas came around again. This time I spent the holiday with Jerome, Sandra, their 2 children, and Elise. We gathered in their living room around a modest tree, exchanging small gifts and sharing stories. There was no tension, no judgment, no performance. Just warmth and honesty, and the simple pleasure of being with people who cared about me. As I sat there watching Elise help Jerome's daughter open a present, I realized something important. The worst night of my life had led me here. If Meredith had not revealed her true nature, I might have spent years more trapped in a marriage built on lies. If her family had not shown me who they really were, I might have kept trying to earn acceptance from people who would never give it. Sometimes the things that feel like destruction are actually liberation. Sometimes the people who hurt you are doing you a favor by showing you who they are before you waste any more of your life on them. I do not hate Meredith anymore. Hate requires energy, and she does not deserve that much of my attention. I feel sorry for her in a way. She had a husband who loved her faithfully for 8 years, and she threw it away for something that did not even last through the winter. Her loss became my gain. Her betrayal became my freedom. If you are watching this, and you have experienced something similar, if someone has lied about you, betrayed you, or turned your own community against you, I want you to know that the truth has power. Gather your evidence. Keep your composure. Do not let their narrative become the only story that gets told. And remember this: the people who abandon you without hearing your side were never really on your side to begin with. Real love, real family, real friendship does not work that way. The ones who matter will stay. The ones who leave are just making room for something better. I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever been falsely accused of something by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? What helped you move forward? Your story might help someone else who is going through something similar right now. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more than you know. And if you are new here, consider subscribing so you do not miss future stories about truth, resilience, and finding your way through life's toughest moments. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I genuinely appreciate each and every one of you who made it to the end. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Wishing you peace, strength, and the courage to always stand up for yourself. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.